Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to my channel. Let's begin with a moment of raw honesty. You're sitting across from her. She's younger. Her eyes shimmer with the wild curiosity of someone still tasting the world for the first time. You feel it. The rush, the desire, the magnetism of possibility. And maybe, just maybe, a flicker of doubt. You wonder if this connection is genuine, or if you're just chasing your own fading youth through her. You wonder if she sees you, the man you are, or the man you're performing for. There is something undeniably intoxicating about the energy of a younger woman. It's not about age gaps or judgment. It's about clarity, self-awareness, emotional maturity. Because here's the truth. What draws her to you is not your vintage suit, your well-earned wisdom, or even your success. It's how safe she feels to be seen, how deeply you listen, how present you are when the world keeps rushing by. But when that balance tips, when admiration turns into control, when mentorship becomes manipulation, when connection gives way to ego, that's when everything begins to unravel. So in today's video, we're peeling back the layers. We're going deep, not to judge, but to reveal, to understand the sacred responsibility that comes with dating younger women as an older man. And most importantly, what you must never do. Have you ever found yourself in a room where the music is a little too loud, the laughter a little too fast, and the eyes across from you just a little too young to understand the weight of the silences between your words? It's late. The wine has opened something inside you, nostalgia maybe, or longing. And there she is, radiant, laughing, glowing with the kind of light that comes from still believing that the world owes her something beautiful. She looks at you like you might be the one to give it to her. You know what that feels like? It feels like relevance, like being seen again after years of blending into your responsibilities. It's thrilling, addictive even. But let's not get lost in the fantasy too quickly, because if we're being honest, there's a very thin line between being admired and being misunderstood, between offering guidance and grasping for power. Older men dating younger women has been romanticized and criticized in equal measure, but what is rarely spoken about is the quiet psychology behind it, the invisible contracts, the unspoken expectations, and the emotional responsibilities that are often overlooked by the one holding more life experience. So let's name it. If you are an older man with interest in a younger woman, you carry something sacred. Influence, whether you admit it or not, and with that comes a responsibility to both her and yourself to not misuse it. You see, the very first mistake many older men make, it's not malicious. It's not even obvious. It's the desire to be young again. You dress younger. You start using words you don't really understand. You find yourself dancing between trying to impress her and trying not to embarrass yourself. You laugh louder. You stay up later. You pretend you like the same music. And in that moment, you stop being who you are. You become a curated version of yourself. And the irony, she didn't come to you for your youth. She has that already. She came to you, maybe not consciously, for your groundedness, for your emotional depth, for your stories, your stillness, the way you don't need to prove yourself in every conversation. But the moment you start mimicking her world, instead of inviting her into yours, you break the very bridge that drew her near. And let's talk about that word, inviting, not pulling, not luring, not performing, inviting. You want to know what's attractive, presence. You want to know what feels safe, honesty. And you want to know what repels, trust, faster than anything, pretense. If you try to recapture your youth through her, she will feel it. And it won't inspire her, it will exhaust her. Because then she is no longer with a man who owns who he is. She is with someone trying to outrun his own reflection. It's like trying to build a fire with wet wood. It'll smoke, but it won't sustain. So if you're tempted to rewrite your identity just to match her pace, pause. Ask yourself, what part of me am I hiding right now? What am I afraid she'll find boring or too old or irrelevant? That fear, that's the very place you must lean into. She doesn't need you to be her age. She needs you to be your age, unapologetically. And here's something else. The second mistake is subtle, almost always made with good intentions. You start teaching her, guiding her, advising her. At first, it feels noble. You have experience. You've lived through heartbreaks, layoffs, betrayals, late nights, lonely mornings. So you share, and you share, and you share. But without realizing it, you start lecturing. You give more opinions than questions. You offer direction instead of reflection. You stop listening because you assume you already know where the story is going. And that, my friend, is the moment she stops feeling like your equal and starts feeling like your student. Now let me be clear. There is nothing wrong with mentoring, with sharing wisdom. But in relationships, romantic ones especially, no one wants to feel like they're being schooled. Especially not by the person they're trying to be vulnerable with. You know what she wants more than answers? Curiosity. Ask her why she feels the way she does. Ask her how she sees the world. Listen like you've never heard it before, because even if you've walked that road, her shoes are different. Her story, her scars, her dreams, they are her own. And when you listen, truly listen, not with the intent to respond, but to witness, that's when intimacy begins. You see, it's not about showing her how much you know. It's about showing her how much you care to understand. If you become the teacher, the dynamic shifts. It's no longer a shared dance. it becomes a classroom, and very few people fall in love in a classroom. They might respect you, admire you, even need you, but they won't desire you. And if you are not desired, what are you building? A mentorship, a dependency, or something that will leave you aching for connection when the admiration fades. So I invite you to reflect, not just on what you say, but how you hold space for her words, not just on what you offer, but what you reveal. We all want to feel significant. We all want to feel chosen. But when the desire to matter becomes louder than the desire to connect, we stop being present. And presence, that's the real aphrodisiac. Let's pause here. Now, when we return to this conversation, we'll go even deeper. Because there's a third pattern, often unconscious, that turns relationships with younger women into one-sided dynamics. And it's one you might not even know you're repeating. So let's return to the moment. The one where you're no longer the teacher, where the classroom closes and the vulnerability begins. This is where many men falter without even realizing it. Not because of bad intentions, but because of something far more human: fear. The third mistake older men often make with younger women is the need to protect too much, to shield, to overstep under the guise of care. It starts innocently enough. You notice her making choices that feel impulsive, maybe even reckless. You worry about who she trusts, where she spends her time, the friends she surrounds herself with. And from a place of love or ego, you step in. But here's the truth: protection can quickly become control, even when wrapped in affection. You see, when you try to become her compass instead of being a steady hand beside her, you start stripping away her agency. She is not your daughter. She is not your responsibility. She is your partner. Or she is nothing at all. And in love, partnership means allowing the other person to find their own answers, even if those answers include mistakes. You may have learned those lessons the hard way. And of course, you want to spare her the same scars. But sometimes she needs those scars, not because pain is noble, but because self-discovery is. And there is no shortcut to that journey. So when you start telling her what she should do, who she shouldn't trust, how she ought to behave, you're not helping her. You're colonizing her growth. Trust that she can navigate her own world. Trust that your presence beside her is enough. And if you can't trust that, then ask yourself, what part of me needs control to feel secure? Because love is not possession. Love is not protection that smothers. Love is space. She doesn't need a guardrail. She needs a mirror. Now let's explore another layer. And this one's harder to name. It happens when you stop showing yourself fully. Yes, you're older. Maybe divorced. Maybe bruised by a few heartbreaks. Maybe carrying the weight of children, mortgages, loss, illness, doubt, or simply decades of being the one everyone leans on. And so, when you're with her, with someone who still wakes up believing in fairy tales, you're tempted to filter your truth. You keep your pain quiet. You hide your exhaustion. You talk about the things that make you feel light and skip over the ones that make you feel tired. You don't tell her about the loneliness that sometimes visits you in the mornings, or the fears that keep you up at night, or the guilt you carry for past choices. Why? Because you don't want to weigh her down, because you think she'll see you as broken, old, or heavy, because you're afraid that if you let her see your wounds, she'll run. But here's what I need you to hear: withholding your truth is not protecting her. It's disconnecting from her. We all crave connection. Real connection, not fantasy, not projection. And yes, you might feel like you're preserving the illusion, but illusions don't hold people. They disappear in the light. The older man who pretends he has it all together is not more attractive. He is less trustworthy, because trust is built on truth, not perfection. And when you finally do let her in, when you say, "This is what I've lived through. These are the parts I'm still making peace with," you invite her into something sacred, not a performance, a partnership. You give her the gift of knowing the man behind the confidence, the one behind the compliments, the one who doesn't just want her to admire him, but to understand him. That, my dear, is intimacy. And now we need to talk about boundaries. Because this is the fourth mistake, one that creeps in when the energy is passionate, the connection is exciting, and the lines begin to blur. You stop holding your boundaries. You start saying yes to things you don't really want. You let go of the structures that have kept you steady for years, your routines, your discipline, your solitude. You tell yourself it's compromise, but really it's self-abandonment. Maybe she wants more time, more spontaneity, more change, and you want to keep her interested. So you bend, you flex, you become elastic. But elasticity always snaps. Because here's the thing: no woman, young or old, wants a man who disappears into her. She wants a man who can stand beside her, grounded in who he is, firm in what he needs, soft in how he expresses it. Boundaries are not walls, they're clarity. And clarity is deeply erotic. If she wants to go dancing at midnight, but you know you need sleep because you have work at 6, say it. If she wants your constant attention, but you need solitude to think, name it. Don't perform your flexibility to earn love. That's not love. That's transaction. Love comes when you bring your full self to the table, not the agreeable version, not the edited one, the honest one, and the most powerful boundary of all, knowing when the relationship is no longer about mutual growth, but about borrowed energy. when she's not growing beside you, but growing in your shadow, when you're not connecting, but compensating, when her youth starts becoming your escape instead of your inspiration. Because here's the deepest truth: if you're with a younger woman to feel young, you will always feel old. But if you're with her to feel alive, to share, to learn, to laugh, to hold space for each other's evolution, then her age becomes irrelevant. What matters is not the number of years between you. It's the honesty in the space between your hearts. So let me ask you, are you showing up as a full man or a curated fantasy? Are you leading with wisdom or controlling with fear? Are you loving her or losing yourself? These are not easy questions, but they are essential ones. You see, love isn't found in the appearance of connection. It's found in the depth of it. And if you want to love a younger woman, you must first learn how to love yourself as you are. As you really are. No masks, no mirrors, no ego, just presence. Let's pause here. There's something else I need to say, and it may sting a little. You see, one of the deepest traps older men fall into when entering relationships with younger women is forgetting how time moves differently for each of you. For her, everything feels like a beginning. For you, it might feel like a return or even a last chance. And when that imbalance goes unnamed, it becomes a quiet pressure that shapes every interaction. She may be dreaming of building, of discovering, of trying on different versions of herself. She is still unfolding, still writing her story with ink that hasn't dried. And you may be looking for peace, stability, meaning the desire to settle, to root, to simplify. When those two timelines collide and no one speaks about it, you begin to distort the relationship to fit an invisible mold. You ask her to slow down, to calm down, to commit to things she doesn't even know she wants yet. And she, out of affection or attraction or the sweet naivety of someone still figuring herself out, may try. But deep down, resentment starts to grow. Quietly, in both of you feel she's not grateful enough, not grounded enough, not serious enough. She feels stifled, pressured, misunderstood. And so, the fifth and perhaps most dangerous mistake you must never make is projecting your unmet longings onto her. She is not your second chance. She is not your healing from the past. She is not your redemption or your reinvention. She is not here to fix the broken parts of your story. She is her own story. She deserves to be loved not because she fills the gaps in your life, but because you see her, truly see her as she is. When you place your unhealed wounds at her feet, hoping she'll soothe them, it's no longer love. It's emotional outsourcing. And it will eventually become emotional debt, a debt she didn't ask for and will resent paying. So if you feel emptiness, go toward it. Name it, sit with it, but don't turn her into your medication. Your youth cannot be restored through her laughter. Your masculinity cannot be validated by her desire, and your worth cannot be proven by her admiration. You must do that work yourself. Otherwise, you turn her from a woman into a mirror, and the moment she stops reflecting back the version of you that you want to see, you will discard her. Or worse, resent her. This isn't a tragedy. It's a very common human story, one rooted in a fear of aging, of irrelevance, of disappearing into the background of life. But here's the truth most men never get told. Aging is not a descent, it's an arrival. You are not fading, you are distilling. What once was scattered is now focused. What once was noise is now signal. What once needed to be proven now only needs to be lived. And when you own that, when you stop apologizing for your age, your scars, your slowness, your depth, something changes. You no longer try to hold on to her. You simply hold space for her. You don't chase her youth. You honor your own maturity. You don't expect her to rescue you from your past. You invite her to meet you in your present. And when you love like that, with presence instead of performance, with clarity instead of control, with curiosity instead of critique, you become unforgettable, because very few women, young or old, ever meet a man who is fully himself. So let me say this to you, with all the grace in my heart: never pretend to be less than who you are to be loved by someone who doesn't yet know who they are. Your life has been lived. Your stories are stitched into your skin. Your laughter lines are a map of resilience. Your eyes have seen storms and silence. That is not something to hide. That is something to bring forward, tenderly, unapologetically. And if she cannot meet you there, it's not because you are too much or too old or too complicated. It's because you are no longer available for relationships built on fantasy. And that, my friend, is the most attractive quality of all. Now, before we part ways, I want to remind you of something essential. This conversation is not about blame. It's about awareness. The power you hold, not just in your age, but in how you use it, the way you speak, touch, lead, hold, the way you see someone without trying to shape them. You want to be loved, be real. You want to be remembered, be present. And if you want something that lasts, something that grows instead of performs, then show up with your whole self, not as a rescuer, not as a performer, not as a fantasy, but as a man who has lived, who has learned, who is still learning, a man who honors her journey without compromising his own, a man who doesn't need to chase youth because he knows what he offers is deeper than novelty. It is presence. It is knowing. It is love rooted in something real. And in that space, when both people are seen, met and respected, age is not a barrier. It becomes a bridge. Thank you for staying with me through this deeply honest reflection. If anything he has spoken to you, I'd love to hear your story, your thoughts, your experience. Share it in the comments. Let's create a space where these conversations can live, breathe, and evolve. If this video gave you something to think about, to feel into, or to act on, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Because love is not a game, it's a mirror. And sometimes, all we need is someone who will stand there with us and not look away. Here's to loving with clarity, with courage, and without disguise. Here's to living your truth no matter who's watching. So let's linger in this space for a little longer, the space where clarity has settled, where you've stopped running from your age and started standing in your truth. Now comes the moment that most men don't recognize until it's far too late. It's the subtle unraveling of self-trust, the internal erosion that begins when you start asking not, do I want this? But instead, will she still want me if I don't? And that question, it births an entirely different kind of man. The kind who becomes afraid to lead, to challenge, to offer his truth, not because he doesn't know how, but because he fears rejection more than he values integrity. That is the sixth mistake, abandoning your standards to keep her close. It's so tempting, isn't it? The thrill of attention, the feeling of being wanted again after years of routine and predictability. You finally feel seen. Youth often has that magic, but instead of honoring what brought you here, the hard-earned wisdom, the quiet masculine steadiness, you start tiptoe around her world like a guest, rather than inviting her into yours like a host. You stop setting the tone. You let her decide everything, what you do, how you speak, what you wear, where you go, who you are, and suddenly, without meaning to, you've given up your leadership, not dominance, but emotional direction. This isn't about controlling a woman. It's about embodying direction and clarity, because even if she doesn't say it, she's looking for that, not someone to manage her life, but someone who is already managing his own, someone who can say no with kindness, with confidence, without fear. And here's where we find another truth that no one prepares you for. Young women are not drawn to you because you're trying to prove your relevance. They are drawn to you when you stop needing to prove anything at all. When you say, this is what I value, this is what I love, this is how I move through the world, and you say it without apology, you create a frequency that's deeply masculine, one that says, I am not here to impress, I am here to express. Can you feel the difference? One chases validation, the other radiates presence. So if you've been molding yourself around her desires, hoping she'll stay longer, pause. Ask yourself, who am I becoming to be loved by her? Because if the answer is, someone I barely recognize, then you're not in a relationship, you're in a performance. And here's the danger of that performance. You may win her for a while, but the version of her you attract is one who's fallen in love with your mask, not your truth. And one day you'll grow tired of the role, and she'll grow confused about who you actually are. And the relationship will fracture, not because you changed, but because you were never fully there. So stay in your center, speak your truth. If you love your silence, your slow mornings, your jazz at night, your long walks, don't trade that for noisy clubs and constant texting and pretending to understand memes you don't find funny. Not because they're wrong, but because they're not yours. You've earned your rhythm. Don't lose it to match hers. Because what makes a younger woman feel safe, admired, and cherished is not a man who imitates her youth. It's a man who reveres his own maturity. And let's go deeper. Because the seventh mistake is what I call future casting. It's the habit of placing her potential above her present. You see who she could become. You hear her fears, her ambitions, her uncertainty, and you start creating a vision of the woman she's going to be. A woman you'll shape, a woman you'll protect, a woman who will evolve into something more with your help. But what you miss while dreaming of who she could be is the actual woman sitting in front of you right now. And here's the truth you must swallow. When you love someone's potential more than their present, you turn them into a project. She didn't come to be fixed. She came to be seen. Yes, you may have lived more. Maybe you have foresight. Maybe you see where her choices will lead her. But that doesn't give you the right to treat her path like a blueprint you can redesign. That's not love. That's possession in disguise. Love says, I see you now, and I will walk beside you, not above you. I will ask who you are, not tell you who to become. This is the real invitation of age, to stop trying to build people into the versions we fantasize about, and instead to meet them where they are. Not for what they'll become, but for what they already are. That kind of presence is rare. And for a younger woman, so often compared, corrected, told she's not enough, it is revolutionary. It gives her something she may never have truly felt before. And it gives you something too, the deep joy of loving without needing to mold, of connecting without needing to shape, of witnessing without the ego of authorship. Because when you stop trying to architect her future, you free yourself from the pressure of saving someone. And in that freedom, love breathes. Now you may be wondering, where does this leave us? What's the alternative? It's not about avoiding younger women. It's about how you show up when you are with them. Do you seek connection over control? Do you remain curious, even when you think you already know? Do you bring your whole, unfiltered self, not the version you think she wants? Do you listen without fixing, guide without leading, offer without attaching? That is the kind of man who makes a younger woman feel safe, inspired, and deeply respected. That is the kind of man who doesn't chase youth but honors it. That is the kind of man who becomes unforgettable. So here, in this moment, you have a choice. You can keep trying to hold on to a younger version of yourself through the women you date, or you can finally become the man you were always meant to be. The one who doesn't need to be adored to feel worthy. The one who doesn't trade truth for attention. The one who knows being deeply known is far more intimate than being temporarily admired. This is your turning point. Let's take a breath together. We're not done yet. Let's stay here just a little longer, in this quiet place where the noise of validation fades, and what's left is your truth, your stillness, your clarity. Because when we talk about love between an older man and a younger woman, we're not just talking about age. We're talking about the rhythm of emotional time, about how two people walk through life seasons at very different speeds, and what it means to choose each other anyway. The final mistake, perhaps the most silent, the most seductive, is trying to make her your life. It sounds romantic, it feels like devotion, but it's not, it's enmeshment. When you begin to orbit around her world, when you forget the roots you've planted over decades, when her affection becomes your oxygen, you stop being a man. You become an emotional dependent. And no woman, especially not a younger woman, is prepared to carry the weight of becoming someone's reason for being. She may admire you. She may be drawn to your experience, your poise, your sensual calm. But she is still discovering who she is, and she cannot be your world. She must remain her own. You had a life before her. You must have one with her, not because of her. What you bring to this connection should never be your need to be filled. It should be your fullness spilling over, your wholeness shared, not your emptiness disguised as love. This, my dear listener, is the distinction between desire and dependency. Desire breeds, dependency clings. Desire invites, dependency demands. Desire says, I choose you because I want to, not, I need you to choose me so I can feel enough. When you make a younger woman your center, your compass, your sole joy, you place her on a pedestal she never asked to stand on. And pedestals are lonely places. No one can live there. Eventually she will step down, and you will feel abandoned, not because she left, but because you forgot to hold your own center. The man who loses himself in love is not romantic. He is lost. So what then does it mean to truly be with a younger woman? It means letting her be a woman, not an idea. It means standing beside her, not behind her, not in front of her, not above her. It means meeting her not as a student, not as a project, not as a replacement for your missed youth, but as a soul, vibrant, whole in process, just like you. It means showing her that age is not a gap. It's a gateway to depth, to slowness, to clarity, to a kind of love that isn't frantic or needy or afraid. You want to be unforgettable to her. Be present. Don't rush to impress. Slow down to express. Don't perform. Just be. Fully. Gently. Unapologetically. Because the most erotic thing about you is not your car, your charm, your wallet, or your witty lines. It's your attention, your silence, your willingness to stay in the room when the conversation gets real. Your emotional capacity, your ability to hold her without needing to fix her. You've been through storms, so be her shelter, not her rescuer, not her savior, not her project, just her partner, her witness, her mirror. And when she sees that you don't need her to complete you, but that you choose her to complement you, that's when love takes root. That's when age stops mattering. Because now, what matters is presence, intention, respect, emotional maturity. Let me say this to you not as a warning, but as a blessing. Do not waste your depth trying to appear surface level. Do not dim your wisdom to keep her entertained. Do not reduce your complexity to fit her timeline. Bring her into your life if you must, but only if that life is worth sharing. Because the truth is, she's not your destination. She's not your final chance. She's just another soul walking her own road. And you are invited to walk beside her for as long as your paths align. Not to lead her, not to carry her, but to companion her. And when that companionship is rooted in truth, not ego, not fantasy, not fear, something beautiful unfolds. A relationship that doesn't depend on your ages, but on your presence, your integrity, your ability to love, not with possession, but with presence. So what must you never do with a younger woman? Never lie to her to make yourself feel better. Never pretend to be who you were instead of who you are. Never make her your reason for existence. Never guide her like she's lost. She may be younger, but she is still whole. Never forget that real love doesn't seek to own. It seeks to understand. And most importantly, never forget to love yourself. Your now self. Not your past. Not your illusion. You. Now, the man you are today, he is enough, he is worthy, he is needed, not because he's young, but because he's awake. If this has touched you, I want to hear your voice in the comments. If you've been here, if you've loved, lost, learned, share it. Not just for me. For the man who's silently watching, wondering if he's the only one. He's not. And if this message spoke to your heart, then please like, subscribe, share this video, not for numbers, for truth, because we need more men speaking like this, living like this. Here's to loving with wisdom, to aging with presence, to living without shame. And here's to the woman who sees you not for the number on your birth certificate, but for the depth of your gaze, the stillness of your presence, and the courage it takes to be fully, unapologetically alive.